In the NHL, an offer sheet is a contract offered to a restricted free agent by a team who does not own the rights to that restricted free agent. If the contract is accepted by the player's original team has 7 days to decide if they want to match the offer sheet. If the player's original team elects to not match the offer sheet, the restricted free agent will officially switch teams, and, depending on the specific contract given, the original team may be entitled to specific compensation. Offer sheets are quite rare. GMs apparently view this as the ultimate violation of the bro code. Sensible offer sheets are generally matched immediately, and making an offer sheet puts a massive target on your back. If you offer sheet another team, they'll be looking to offer sheet your players in subsequent years. Prior to 1995, everyone was a restricted free agent, and compensation packages, often referred to as equalization, were determined by the two teams, or in some cases a neutral arbitrator. As of today, the only restricted free agents are players who are under 27 years of age and have less than 7 accrued NHL seasons, while any other player goes to unrestricted free agency and can sign anywhere without compensation. The age and/or amount of experience to be a restricted free agent has changed over the years, but the general concept of restricted free agency has remained static. There have been 8 instances of a player signing an offer sheet and the original team choosing not to match. Today, we're going to explore every example of an unmatched offer sheet since the updated collective bargaining agreement of 1995. The very first unmatched offer sheet came quite soon after the modified CBA in the 1995 off-season. On July 28, 1995, Shane Corson signed a 5-year, $6.975 million offer sheet given by the St. Louis Blues. Up until this point, Corson had had a tumultuous tenure in Edmonton with the Oilers. The Oilers missed the playoffs in all 3 seasons that Corson was there, and in the 1995 NHL season, Corson was stripped of his captaincy. It is not a stretch of the imagination to suggest that Edmonton was ready to move on this player if an opportunity came up. St. Louis, on the other hand, was coming off a strong 1995 season, and they had some excellent core players, including Brett Hull, Al MacInnis, and Brendan Shanahan. As a chippy scoring winger, it makes sense that Shane Corson was a target here. Edmonton elected to not match this offer sheet, and the compensation that they received was 2 first-round picks. Weirdly, Edmonton ended up giving those 2 first-round picks back to St. Louis in exchange for goaltender Curtis Joseph and winger Mike Greer. Not a bad haul for a player who was not meeting expectations in Edmonton. Corson had one good playoff run with the Blues, but was traded to Montreal very early into his second season with St. Louis. Those 2 first-round picks turned into Marty Reisner and Matt Zoltek. There were no other unmatched offer sheets in 1995, but there were a couple in 1996, both involving goaltenders. The first one occurred on July 10, 1996. Ron Tugnut, property of the Washington Capitals, signed a 1-year, $400,000 offer sheet with the Ottawa Senators. This one was rather interesting, since Tugnut spent the previous year with the Portland Pirates of the AHL, and never even suited up for the Capitals. Ottawa was a recent expansion franchise, and they hadn't even eclipsed the 20-win mark in any of their seasons. This was a franchise desperate to at least become respectable, and their scouting staff identified Tugnut as an underrated asset to gamble on. Washington already had a strong goaltender tandem of Ole Kolzig and Jim Carey, so they decided to not match this offer sheet. Given the low cost of this offer sheet, Ottawa did not have to give up any compensation to Washington. Tugnut had a very good 4 years for Ottawa and led the Senators to their first playoff appearances in franchise history, so this was an astute acquisition for them. Very soon after, on July 22, 1996, just 12 days after the Tugnut offer sheet, another goalie signed an offer sheet. Arturs Irbe of the San Jose Sharks signed a 1-year, $400,000 contract with the Dallas Stars. The Stars were coming off a terrible season, and their goaltending left a lot to be desired. San Jose had an even worse season, and Irbe's save percentage of .860 was unquestionably a contributing factor in San Jose's downfall. Irbe had some good seasons in years prior, but for some reason he wasn't at his best in 1996. San Jose ultimately decided not to match, and they received nothing in compensation due to the low salary. In fact, this was the exact same contract that Ron Tugnut was given. Interestingly, it appears as if all 3 parties, the player and both teams, did just fine following the trade. Irbe had a much better season in Dallas, and then later resurrected his career. Following the 1996-1997 season, he signed in Vancouver to play with the Canucks for a year. Then he went to Carolina and had a very impressive run, including a year with a save percentage of .923 and a Stanley Cup Finals appearance. The Dallas Stars, without Irbe, won the Stanley Cup in 1999, and the San Jose Sharks began a run where they made the playoffs 19 times in 21 years. There was one unmatched offer sheet in 1997. Chris Gratton of the Tampa Bay Lightning, 21 years old at the time, became a restricted free agent. He was a very hot commodity. He was a recent third overall pick. He just put up a 62-point season. He played center, and he had some snarl to his game. Tampa was an expansion franchise, and they were not exactly cash-rich, so Lightning GM Phil Esposito was definitely concerned about the possibility of an offer sheet. And, well, he was rightfully concerned. In August of 1997, the Philadelphia Flyers ended up signing Chris Gratton to a 5-year offer sheet worth a total of $16.5 million. The scariest part, however, was the $9 million signing bonus. Tampa simply could not match this offer sheet from a financial perspective. But Esposito still tried to find a way out of this. He claimed that Philadelphia's offer sheet was illegible, and then tried to trade Gratton to Chicago in exchange for $5.5 million. All of Esposito's efforts were in vain. An arbitrator deemed the offer sheet valid, and Bettman ruled the hypothesized Chicago trade to be a cash deal, and therefore prohibited it. This entire saga ended up with Gratton going to the Flyers for a couple of years, and the Lightning receiving 2 first-round picks in compensation. The Lightning ended up trading these picks back to the Flyers in exchange for Carl Dykhuis and Mikhail Renberg. This trade didn't really end up working out for either team, as Renberg and Gratton were traded back to their original teams in December of 1998. Following the 1997 offseason, the NHL went 10 years without an unmatched offer sheet, and the next one was certainly a doozy. The 2007 Anaheim Ducks steamrolled their way to the Stanley Cup, and, like most championship-caliber teams, they were left with some tough financial decisions to make in the offseason. Anaheim had to sign all of Ryan Getzlaf, Corey Perry, and Dustin Penner. Getzlaf and Perry were considered the most valuable of the three, while Penner possessed a rare combination of skill and size. Anaheim Ducks general manager Brian Burke suspected Dustin Penner would receive an offer sheet, and he was right. On July 26, 2007, Kevin Lowe of the Edmonton Oilers signed Dustin Penner to a 5-year, $21.5 million offer sheet. The funnest part of this offer sheet, by far, is the level-headed reaction that Brian Burke had to this deal. Burke was apparently a little annoyed that Kevin Lowe didn't directly inform him about the offer sheet, and that Burke had to find out by receiving a fax from the league instead. Another one of Burke's main concerns was the domino effect that this offer sheet would have on every team's salary structure. He even likened this offer sheet to throwing a grenade at the other 29 teams. Kevin Lowe, like any sensible human being, responded to this by challenging Brian Burke to a fight. Burke, like an even more sensible human being, decided to rent a barn just to fight Lowe. It seemed like we were going to get the matchup of the century, until Buzzkill Bettman stepped in and threatened to suspend both general managers. On August 2nd, the Ducks officially declined to match the offer sheet. As compensation, the Ducks received a first, second, and third round pick. And Burke later said that, given Kevin's recent performance, I expect them to be excellent picks. I'd say that this whole fiasco worked out better for Anaheim than it did for Edmonton. Anaheim was able to parlay this pick into Jake Gardiner, and the Oilers didn't make the playoffs a single time while Penner was there. During the entire 2010s, there were 0 unmatched offer sheets. However, we're going to quickly talk about one matched offer sheet that took place in 2019. On July 1st, 2019, Sebastian Aho of the Carolina Hurricanes signed a 5-year offer sheet with the Montreal Canadiens. The contract was worth a total of $42.27 million, with an average annual value of around $8.5 million. Aho was a 21-year-old star coming off an 83-point season, and it does make sense why Montreal would want him. But this offer sheet was a complete waste of time. $8.5 million was an extremely reasonable salary for Aho, and there was no chance that Carolina was going to let their best forward walk after a season where they made the conference finals. On July 8, 2019, Carolina officially matched the offer sheet. It seems as if Canadiens general manager Marc Bergevin just did all of Carolina's paperwork for them. However, this story is not over. In 2021, just a few years later, Jesperi Kotkaniemi of the Montreal Canadiens, a recent third overall draft pick, was a restricted free agent, and the Carolina Hurricanes did not forget what happened in 2019. On August 28, 2021, Jesperi Kotkaniemi signed a 1-year, $6.1 million offer sheet with the Carolina Hurricanes. The most hilarious part of this offer sheet, though, was the signing bonus of $20, the same number that Sebastian Aho bears. Carolina's social media team was also very loud and proud after this offer sheet took place. It's been highly suspected that kooky owner Tom Dundon was a driving force in this offer sheet. Montreal ultimately decided to not match this offer sheet, and Kotkaniemi became a Hurricane. As compensation, Montreal received a first-round pick and a third-round pick. This entire debacle didn't really work out for anyone. The Canadiens ended up trading this pick for Christian Dvorak, and Montreal had virtually no team success during Dvorak's tenure there. Kotkaniemi was eventually signed to an enormous 8-year extension in Carolina, and has pretty consistently underperformed offensively since signing the extension. He did win the Stanley Cup with the Hurricanes in 2026, so that's cool at least. For the next few years, it was pretty quiet, but then the summer of 2024 happened. On August 13th, 2024, not one, but two offer sheets were signed. The St. Louis Blues signed forward Dylan Holloway and defenseman Philip Broberg, both of the Edmonton Oilers, to offer sheets. Broberg received a 2-year deal worth a total of $9.16 million, while Holloway was given a 2-year deal worth $4.58 million. I must say, this offer sheet was very shrewd on St. Louis's part, and it avoided a lot of the logistical issues that make offer sheets uncommon in the first place. First off, Edmonton was in an enormous cap crunch coming off a Stanley Cup Finals appearance, so it was difficult to match and it seemed almost impossible for them to match Broberg specifically. Doug Armstrong, general manager of the Blues, was set to leave his position in 2026 and hand the reins over to Alex Steen, so the Oilers didn't really have a conceivable window to get revenge on Armstrong, like how Carolina did to Montreal. And, even if they could, the Blues had no high-profile players projected to hit restricted free agency in the upcoming years anyway. On August 20th, Edmonton officially elected to not match either offer sheet, and Holloway and Broberg became St. Louis Blues. The compensation for Broberg was a second-round pick, and for Holloway it was a third-round pick. However, the Blues also gave the Oilers a third-round pick on August 13th as well, maybe as some sort of handshake agreement. This worked out marvelously for the Blues. Holloway and Broberg both broke out massively, and have now earned really big contracts in St. Louis. Edmonton was hurting from the Holloway loss, and they might have fared better in the 2025 Stanley Cup Finals with him on the roster. If there was ever a textbook example of how an offer sheet should be made, the Holloway and Broberg ones would be it. As of 2026, there have not been any more unmatched offer sheets. The 2026 season saw two offer sheets, one involving the New Jersey Devils trying to sign Barrett Hayton from the Utah Mammoth, and an enormous offer sheet where the Philadelphia Flyers tried to steal Leo Carlsson from the Anaheim Ducks. But both of the original teams matched, and they likely didn't think twice while doing so. For every successful offer sheet, there are tons that are a complete waste of time.